Okay, we are going to get practical, gang, right? We need to encourage outdoor learning activities, settings. So, Stephen, I'm coming to you first again. I'm interested for you to share your thoughts on encouraging outdoor learning in a variety of different contexts and settings.
Well, I mean, it's what we're not doing for sure is just taking the existing classroom and planting it outside. And I think we saw some horror pictures during the pandemic. Kids sitting in playgrounds with square boxes painted around them. And whoa, what were they thinking, you know? But kids outside are, can be quite autonomous. I mean, obviously, you can pair the kids up so you know where they are. Technology is your friend because you can contact them pretty easily. I like to have a good whistle, which really works pretty effectively. This is the loudest whistle in the world, 120 decibels. I won't blow it here. The tech crew will all fall off their benches, But, simple things. You've got to, how am I going to tell everybody to come back? You still need moments of direct instruction, full frontal teaching, So you've got to get them back for that. And I think if people imagined maybe when they were in their science labs at school, there's a moment when they say, come on up, and you'll come up to that key moment, sit around the teacher's bench, and this is sulfuric acid, don't drink it. Those really important things are, everybody captures it and off you go again. Zoning works well. We've got an outdoor school a little chapel school in Essex. We built a wandering path all the way around the school. There are stations all the way along. And there's a numeracy station, there's a local culture station, and the kids have an activity sheet that's got 3 or 4 activities. And they choose which one they do. If they go to one and it's busy, they move on to another one. That encourages the movement anyway. And another simple thing is to put measurements all over the place. Kids are very under-numerate these days, and not a lot of number in their lives. They don't do change in the shops anymore. They don't give money on the bus. It's all done digitally or in some other way. So it gets quite interesting when you just paint numbers around the school. And I don't just mean so they get familiar with the numbers, but estimating how tall is the tallest tree, how high is that roof, how far is it from one side of the school to the other. And on a little phone you can do things like it's a free app, just measures how fast you run across the phone. So just looking for not just activity, but activity in data. Think about what they're doing, think about the places they do it, think about a carousel of activities that move them around, think about how you get them back, think about who's looking after who, and you can mix ages real good. A lot of schools, as you know, around the world are going for stage, not age now, so the kids are doing, if you're really good at this, you do it with the big kids because you can keep up with them. That works really well out of doors, whereas in the classroom, I've got to go and sit with the year 10s, that's scary. But out of doors, I'm with the year 10s.
And that goes a lot to the culture of your school, the climate and the culture of your school. If you're developing a school where it is a school of respect, it's a school of awareness, a school where they understand what respect and value, you can allow for those things to happen. And I love that example that you gave there, where it's like, take down the cones, develop that culture and climate where there's respect amongst each other, and then you can have those interactions with each other in the outdoor space. The other thing that really jumped out to me is how you were giving examples of how technology and the outdoor space can blend together so well. Just because you're outside doesn't mean that you're not plugged in, so to speak, to technology and the world around you. It can blend together as well. Catriona, you're in a school, as we know. What suggestions do you have for taking the curriculum outside? And I also want to hear from our other panelists some thoughts and ideas that you might have.
Sure. I mean, when it comes to what we're doing here, and actually what I've done in other schools in Asia as well, is it's about making sure that it's really embedded in your school practice. So, for example, it's quite commonplace for teachers to sit down and do a medium-term planning meeting about what we're going to be teaching for the next term. And there you have your kind of normal literacy, math, science. But we tend to kind of leave off there an outdoor learning box, and so my role has been to bring in an outdoor element to that goes throughout that term. So, for example, it could be having, we're super lucky here, we actually have in our curriculum a half day that's out for excursions. And that, some principals might say like, well, but you know, the learning, the maths and the literacy and the numeracy, but actually that learning is happening outdoors. So we're not jeopardizing a subject for this excursion day or half day. We're giving them an opportunity to learn within an external community. That could be going and interviewing people if they're doing a design sprint and getting some ideas about what the actual local community needs. It could be an idea of going to a local space and not necessarily having something that's super pre-planned, but actually about giving the students an experience so they can bring that experience back to the classroom when they come into doing a piece of writing, or maybe writing a song, or, for example, even maths. I've seen really young students naturally playing with things that start to teach them about physics and acceleration, and that's just happening because of the resources that we have outside, and they're things that the children can come and bring. They can bring to water, they can start rolling balls up them, up and down them, and then they're starting to learn things in this play-based way. I think my suggestion for teachers would be also having something in the classroom that you could just grab. For example, I would just have a whole bank of clipboards. When the learning opportunity comes out and you realise, actually, this is a teachable moment outdoors, you've got the opportunity to just take the clipboards and the paper and take them out there. And I know that schools, we all have to have these risk assessments, and excursions are a lot of pre-planning. But actually, if you are able to teach in an environment where you've got an urban outdoor space, that's a perfect opportunity to just take them out and look at something. And we would have a typical risk assessment that would be in our local area, so the teachers could pick and choose when they wanted to take them to those spaces. So my advice is, in the planning part of the teaching and learning, is to always include outdoors in that, and make sure you have a bank of resources that can facilitate that learning happening out there anyway.
I love that. Other people on the panel, I'm curious as to your thoughts, specifically James, the type of resources that encourages outdoor collaborative learning in the school environment.
Well, it's interesting what Catriona was just saying about resources. I mean, we're always trying to make things easier, not more difficult, right, because it's difficult enough as it is. But there are some fantastic and attractive cupboards, outdoor cupboards that are available. Translucent doors so that students can actually see what's in them. So we've given them agency and autonomy so that actually they know that they can go and get stuff. They can open it up, it's shallow, therefore you can see what's in it. And so there are some really imaginative solutions out there. It's just sometimes a case of going out and finding them and discovering them. We know that sometimes you need to go out. Catriona was talking about clipboards, sometimes you do need to go out and do some data recording, for example. Sometimes you do need something. And there's some great things such as this, that's a very simple piece of plastic that I can just sit on, and now all of a sudden I've got a hard work surface. We know that we don't want students, Tim will tell us about how we don't want students to feel worried about anything, that, oh, how am I going to do this? And so again, it's coming back to, let's make it easy for them. And if it's easy for them, there's then no lack of concentration, there's no opportunity for them to be taken off task at any point because they're trying to figure something out. So dispersed resources as well around, as opposed to, again, having everything very, very close. These little cupboards, having them around, Stephen was talking about having these different zones, and so we have our math resources in one area, we have construction resources in a different area, so we don't have these bottlenecks, we don't have lots of people trying to come to the same point, or heaven forbid, 30 children trying to cram into a shed to find something that's underneath the basketballs at the back, which somebody else has tipped over. It just requires a little bit of thought about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and come back to make it simple.
Yeah, and James, it's worth saying a couple of words about ownership here. I mean, teachers watching this are going to say, oh, Lord, now I've got to look after the basketball set, all the plants in the classroom, 110 new things I never... give the task to the children. when we do the plants in the classroom, the children have his BYOP, bring your own plant. They have a name on the plant. Here's Matilda, the money plant or whatever. They, you know, they try out different nutrients with it, and they build little stem self-watering things outside. You know, who's looking after the timing clock for the running around? Who's looking after the number trees? You know, they put up these lovely number trees where every branch there's a reason why. And why are those numbers on that branch? Because they're prime numbers. You know, somebody looks after all that stuff. It's the kids. The kids love to have agency for that. They love to have ownership of that. They love to have the responsibility that comes with it. Really, really, really important.
All right, Tim, I'm sure you have some interesting things on what Catriona said about situational learning. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, so, I mean, what she was talking about when she was talking about like naturally learning maths outdoors and so on is very sort of the nature of learning, because learning in classrooms is a fairly modern concept for humans, right? It's not where we were designed to learn. You learn best in the environment where you actually apply the learning. And it's a fairly old idea from psychology that with situational learning, if you test kids in an environment where they learnt some information, you'll get much stronger results from them than you do if you test them in an alien environment. And I mean, so if you're literally training kids to pass written tests, then yeah, sure, keep them in the classroom. But if you actually want them to learn stuff that they can use and apply in the real world, let them learn it out in the real world.
Perfect. Yeah. You know, it's interesting. My son, from very, very early age, grade 1, all the way up until now, he's 18, he's been in the Boy Scouts. And part of the Scouts is being outside. When we go out and we recruit and try to get other Scouts to join it, one of the first questions we ask them is, do you like to be outside? And throughout his life growing up, he would always have his friends ask him, how did you learn that? How do you know that? And like all these additional skills that he had because he was outside, he was camping, he was in the environment, he would learn new ways and plants and the sky, the stars, all these different things. So, you know, it really lends itself well to your thoughts there. I mean, I experienced it firsthand with my own son and the additional learning that takes place just being outside and being a part of nature in so many different ways. It just really, really connects. It's like a different level of learning. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's on-the-job training for life.
Yes, on-the-job training for life. That is it. Absolutely. 100%.
A little anecdote just to fit in there, Steve, is I used to run our local scout group, and we went on a bushcraft camp, and it was a fantastic resource to the extent that they had a crashed aeroplane in the middle of this forest. Now, the kid who ran the first aid part of that now is a trained paramedic. It literally was something that ignited within him, and that's it. It's
yeah, it does.
And kids, listen, kids.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
And kids know this stuff. I mean, I was lucky enough to be involved in the Cayman Islands rebuilding the schools after Hurricane Ivan came along and blew all the schools down, you know, and the kids for a couple of years just had to learn in the spaces that were available, you know, in car parks and all over. And of course, when we came to redesign the schools, the kids were a big part of the design process. We said to the kids, what do you want? And they said, we don't really care, just don't put us back in our boxes. It was a really clear phrase. You know, and I guess if all learning was out of doors and somebody came along and said, you know what, we could do this better in a box, you'd struggle to make the case, you really would.
Absolutely, yeah. And when we are learning in a box, what do we want to do? Open the windows, give us sunlight. You know, when people are looking for houses, how much sunlight comes in? How do we get the outdoors into what it is that we're doing? Wow. Hey, thank you for those fantastic, amazing insights, gang. You know, that feels like a great place to wrap up our discussion on this part. And for our next section, we're going to be exploring more practical ways to overcome those outdoor learning barriers that we may have.